The air inside the theater of Pompey is heavy, stifling, smelling of old stone and the nervous sweat of hundreds of men. It is the 15th of March, 44 BC. A man sits in a gilded chair. He is the conqueror of Gaul, the victor of the Civil War, the dictator for life. He believes that by pardoning his enemies, he has bought their loyalty. He is wrong. In a split second, the illusion shatters. A signal is given. A toga is pulled back. The glint of steel flashes in the dim light. The first dagger strikes his shoulder, then another and another. The Senate floor, usually a place of law, becomes a slaughterhouse. But the most terrifying part of this image isn't the blood. It is the faces of the killers. These aren't foreign invaders. They aren't political rivals from a distant faction. They are his friends, his dinner guests, his most trusted generals. Why did the very men who stood beside him in battle decide that he had to die? How does the most powerful man on earth end up lying alone on a stone floor, pierced 23 times by the people he loved most? In this video, we are going to step inside their minds to find the answer. Welcome to the heart of the Roman Republic, or rather, its dying breath. The assassination of Julius Caesar is perhaps the most famous murder in history. We know the outcome: the fall of the Republic and the rise of the Empire. But often, history books glaze over the human element of this betrayal. They talk about liberty versus tyranny, abstract concepts that hide the visceral personal reality of that day. This story isn't just about politics. It's about power and the limits of loyalty. To understand why Caesar died, we have to understand the men who killed him, specifically his generals. These were men who had tied their fortunes to his rising star, only to realize that his light was blinding them all. Today, we are dissecting the anatomy of the ultimate betrayal. We are asking the difficult question: why did his generals turn on him? And ultimately, was Caesar's greatest mistake not his ambition, but his mercy? To understand the betrayal, you must first understand the suffocating atmosphere of Rome in early 44 BC. Imagine walking through the Forum. Everywhere you look, you see statues of one man. On the coins exchanging hands in the market, you see the face of a living person, Caesar. This was an honor previously reserved only for gods or dead kings. He has been named Dictator Perpetuo, dictator for life. For the Roman elite, the senators and the old aristocratic families, this was a nightmare realized. Rome was built on a deep cultural hatred of kings. For 500 years, the Republic functioned on the idea that power was shared, temporary, and checked. But Caesar had swallowed the state whole. However, it wasn't just the concept of liberty that was under threat. It was the personal ambition of his generals. In the old system, a general could conquer a province, return home, have a triumph, and be the most important man in Rome for a year. Under Caesar, there was no room for anyone else at the top. His generals, men who had bled for him in Gaul and Spain, realized a terrifying truth. As long as Caesar lived, they would essentially be nothing more than his high-ranking servants. They were trapped in a golden cage, unable to fly. The conspiracy was not a single unified mind. It was a patchwork of different, darker motives. At the center, you have three key figures who represent the different faces of betrayal. First, there is Cassius Longinus. Historians often depict him as the lean and hungry villain. Cassius was driven by a mix of political idealism and bitter personal envy. He had fought against Caesar in the Civil War, was pardoned by him, and hated him for it. Every day he lived was a reminder of Caesar's mercy, which to a proud Roman felt like slavery. Then there is Marcus Brutus. He is the tragic figure of this story. He was the son of Caesar's mistress, a man Caesar treated almost like a son. Brutus was torn. He loved the man, but he worshipped the Republic. The conspirators needed Brutus not for his knife, but for his name. He gave the murder legitimacy. But there is a third man, often left out of the popular retelling, who was perhaps the most crucial traitor of all: Decimus Brutus. Unlike Marcus Brutus and Cassius, Decimus was one of Caesar's most loyal generals. He had fought by Caesar's side in Gaul. He was named in Caesar's will. He had no reason to hate him, except for the realization that under a dictator, his own career had hit a ceiling. His betrayal cuts the deepest because it was cold, calculated, and born of ambition. The morning of March 15th begins with hesitation. Caesar's wife, Calpurnia, woke from a nightmare, dreaming of holding her husband's murdered body. The omens were bad. The sacrifices failed. Caesar, usually not a superstitious man, felt the weight of it. He decided to stay home. He prepared to send Mark Antony to the Senate to dismiss the meeting. If Caesar stays home, the conspiracy fails. The assassins are waiting with daggers hidden in their togas. If the meeting is canceled, the plot will likely be exposed by evening. This is where Decimus Brutus plays his hand. Decimus goes to Caesar's house. Imagine the scene. The trusted general, the old friend, putting a hand on Caesar's shoulder. He mocks the omens. He tells Caesar that the Senate is waiting to crown him king of the provinces. He appeals to Caesar's vanity and his fear of looking weak. What will they say? Decimus asks if Caesar waits for his wife to have better dreams. It is this manipulation, this personal betrayal of trust, that lures Caesar out of his door. Decimus takes him by the hand and leads him to the slaughter. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the dark psychology of history, hit subscribe right now so you don't miss the next betrayal we uncover. Caesar arrives at the theater of Pompey. Mark Antony, loyal to Caesar and dangerous in a fight, is intercepted outside and drawn into a long conversation to keep him away from the chamber. Caesar walks to his chair. The conspirators surround him, ostensibly to present a petition. Tullius Cimber, another general whom Caesar trusted, steps forward to beg for his exiled brother's return. Caesar waves him away, annoyed by the crowd pressing in on him. Then Cimber grabs Caesar's toga with both hands, pulling it down from his neck. The signal. Caesar shouts, "Why, this is violence!" Casca strikes the first blow, a clumsy stab at the neck. Caesar catches the arm, shocked. For a moment, he fights back. He is an old soldier. He does not go down easily. He stabs Casca in the arm with his stylus. But then the others close in. It is a frenzy. Blades are flashing everywhere, so wild that the conspirators end up stabbing each other in the chaos. Caesar is pushed back and forth like a wild beast trapped in a pit. Finally, he sees Marcus Brutus. Seeing the man he loved and pardoned holding a dagger, Caesar stops fighting. He pulls his toga over his head to die with dignity. He crashes to the foot of the statue of Pompey, his old rival. The moment Caesar hits the floor, the silence is deafening. The conspirators, covered in blood, raise their daggers and turn to the rest of the Senate, shouting, "Liberty, freedom, the tyrant is dead." They expect applause, to be hailed as saviors. Instead, they see terror. The hundreds of other senators, who were not part of the plot, do not cheer. They panic. They rush for the doors, fleeing the building in a stampede. The conspirators are left standing alone with a corpse. This is the turning point. They had planned the murder perfectly, but they had failed to plan for what came next. They assumed that by killing the man, They would kill the idea of dictatorship. But Caesar was not just a politician. He was a hero to the common people and the legions. The conspirators had miscalculated the mood of Rome entirely. They thought they were restoring the Republic. In reality, they had just fired the starting gun for a new, bloodier civil war. In the days that followed, the tide turned violently against the assassins. Mark Antony, seizing the moment, gave a funeral oration that whipped the Roman mob into a frenzy, revealing that Caesar had left money to every citizen in his will. The liberators were forced to flee Rome, hunted down one by one until not a single assassin remained alive. The tragedy of the assassination is its supreme irony. Brutus and Cassius killed Caesar to stop a monarchy, yet, by creating a power vacuum and chaos, they paved the way for Caesar's great-nephew Octavian to rise up and become Augustus, the first true emperor of Rome. They killed the dictator, but they made the empire inevitable. Why did his generals betray him? Because Caesar had changed the rules of the game, and they couldn't accept that the game was over. They were men of the old world trying to stop the arrival of the new one with knives. If you've watched this far, you're likely someone who looks for the deeper currents beneath the dates and names of history. If that's you, subscribe now and hit the bell so you don't miss the next stories we are telling. And if this story resonated with you, hit the like button. It helps this video reach more people who love history, just like you. In our next documentary, we will leave Rome and travel forward to the year 1453 to witness the fall of the greatest city on earth. We will uncover the story of the last Byzantine emperor, a man who chose to die with his empire rather than flee. Until then, keep asking questions.